What's a show that you enjoyed but ended up getting canceled?
Story 1. Punisher. Jon Bernthal was awesome. It's coming back! Writer's strike? I don't know if it is. If it's on Disney Plus, it better be just as dark. Jon Bernthal was awesome as the Punisher. His performance in the first season made me actually watch Daredevil. I thought that the Punisher scenes in Daredevil were better than the titular spin-off. As much as I enjoyed the first season, I'm glad it was canceled. That second season was pretty weak. First season was amazing, but the second season was weak as hell in my opinion. Didn't even finish it. I'd commit all sorts of terrible crimes if it meant Frank Castle would punish me. Yowza. It's like Shane on The Walking Dead too. I liked Shane on The Walking Dead too, so maybe I just have a thing for Jon Bernthal, lol. Who doesn't? It was kinda bad. Punisher was only good in Daredevil Season 2. That was the only time I actually enjoyed the character. Season 2 of Punisher especially was offensively bad and mediocre. Extremely generic as well. I got sick of the whole CIA government conspiracy to something that should have been a vigilante story of someone who got his family killed and then starts punishing criminals. If you pay attention, the whole plot of the Punisher show was a ripoff from the show and movie called Shooter, an ex-sniper marine betrayed by his best friend that had to deal with a whole government conspiracy almost the exact same way. Agreed! And the character itself felt like a Wolverine light instead of the Punisher. There's ways to flesh the character out without basically molding him to act like a Logan knockoff. The show was a vapid pastiche of a lot of stuff, and the villains are forgettable. Daredevil's not a perfect show, but the Punisher honestly doesn't hold a candle to it at all. Yeah, in the comics, Punisher is almost an emotionless killing machine and very cold, almost like death itself when dealing with his enemies. On the show, Jon Bernthal was all screams and grunts. I confess it was cool in its own way, especially in Daredevil Season 2, but that's nothing like the actual Punisher from the comics. People saying he was perfect and the definitive Punisher don't know what they're talking about. Unfortunately, I doubt we'll ever get new decent content for the character since Marvel itself is canceling and boycotting him nowadays. And if we'll do it, will be nothing like the OG Punisher, but another watered-down version. It's a bit telling when the what-if versions of Castle have been the most true to his original self versions in a long time. People were still upset with the whole original Punisher movies for whatever reason, so people claiming the old movies were crap were calling Jon the Second Coming. Jon put on a palatable performance as Punisher. That's really all you need as a Punisher. No silly story, no drama, just death and fury incarnate, just going to town on people. I get why they changed how Punisher would act, and that was simply to make it palatable to the average Netflix watcher. The ending was pretty great though, and I liked the way sometimes episodes felt like a side quest, like the one where they randomly started a last standoff at a far-off police station. Loved the vibe of the show. It really felt like a comic book at times. Good grief. What started off as someone saying, "I'm sad the Punisher got canceled, I wish it would come back," really just turned into another online comic nerd movie show spat. I swear, just everything has to be, it's nothing like the original. Well, in the I don't follow comics really. I read some Spider-Man and Daredevil and The Tick. That was my comics when I was younger. I don't know. I also didn't watch The Punisher. I saw him on the second season of Daredevil, which I didn't finish, but what I saw, Jon Bernthal was pretty good and handsome.
Story 2. Invader Zim. I loved that show so much. It could get so dark. They did enter the Florpus, but a one-off just isn't the same. JV did make some new comics for Zim. They're good too. I will never get why they canceled the show. I loved that show, especially when it went dark, not just goofy, although the goofiness was hilarious. Gurr was definitely Deadpool before Deadpool became what he is now. Poole started off as a semi-sarcastic, bad-butt mercenary, and even during his own early comics he was a lunatic, but he didn't go all chimichangas until later. Gurr was a goofy half-wit from the get-go. That, and I always saw a lot of Dib and Dwight Schrute. I think for one thing Vasquez clashed pretty badly with Nickelodeon. I saw some of his books prior to Zim, and while I'm glad they went to Zim, I'm surprised they even thought he'd be a good or appropriate choice. Dark Harvest is one of my favorite episodes of any show ever. Why, you're one of the healthiest little children I've ever seen, and such plentiful organs. I'm really sad about Invader Zim's cancellation also. The only silver lining was that after Zim's cancellation, Brian Konietzko, a storyboard artist on Invader Zim at the time, called up his old buddy Mike DeMartino and ended up creating Avatar: The Last Airbender. Zim died, so Aang could fly. Rewatched this recently and it was as demented as I remembered. But honestly, I'd probably put this second behind Avatar when it comes to quality Nick cartoons. Drastically underrated. Speaking of Avatar, did you know that one of the two creators, can't remember which one, used to work on Invader Zim, and because of that cancellation, he was able to pitch and work on his own show. In an alternate universe where Invader Zim had not been canceled, the entire Avatar franchise might not exist. I had no idea. Looks like the Avatar creator was just a background animator on a single episode of Zim, credits anyway, but the story is pretty wild.
Okay, I don't want to geek out about Invader Zim too much, but I'm a little bit of a fan. A huge fan. In fact, one of my dogs, my Great Dane, her name is Gaz, and that's part of the reason. Amazing show. Just go watch it. If you've never seen it, it's delightfully weird and dark. Zim is so good. Oh my God. I have a mighty need for more Invader Zim.
Story 3, Gallivant. People love to be that there are no new original shows anymore. Well, here was a truly original concept, and they didn't watch the damn thing. I'm still bitter. The episode with Weird Al and the monks who took a vow of singing, I laughed so hard my husband ran in the room to see what was so funny. He looked at the TV and said, "Oh, you're just watching that show again." He doesn't appreciate musicals. I'm a 37-year-old man who is not super into musicals. My wife and I absolutely love that show. Yes, that was insanely disappointing. There is really nothing you can do about this one. At least Lassie came back for the Psych movie. I also had the feeling Battle Creek could be the next Psych and Happy a twisted Psych. I miss Psych, but it was time. Yeah, this is definitely the one. Another season of Madalena learning from the Dedel with a Gareth and Sid buddy team coming to rescue her, perhaps with a reluctant Gallivant and Isabella tagging along. King Richard with his dragon, Tad Cooper, whom I super believe in. I'm telling you, it's comedy gold. It's apparently because people hate musicals. Why? You hate fun? You hate joy? You hate laughter? I believe in Tad Cooper. Story 4, Mindhunter. The actor who played Ed Kemper was electric on screen. What a great show. Also great in Umbrella Academy. Cameron Britton, he does such an impressive performance. The BTK tease and Tench's son? Why, Netflix? Why? I read that the female love interest's dad was a BTK killer. There are a few lines she said that are lines that the real-life BTK killer's daughter said her dad used to say to her. The saddest thing is that based on interviews, David Fincher is the one who wanted to end it. Apparently, he found it to be the most exhausting project he'd ever worked on. Also, its cost was too high and not enough people were watching it. Just heartbreaking. Mindhunter is so good across both of its seasons. I put it ahead of even True Detective Season 1. Today I learned Mindhunter was the manual transmission option of Netflix shows. Has a dedicated fan base, but not enough of them across the customer base and costs too much to produce. The F? They canceled Mindhunter? Was literally telling my spouse he has to watch it and that I'd gladly rewatch with him, for F's sake. Story 5. My Name is Earl. It literally ended with the words, "To be continued." Tragic. Yes, the planned ending made me cry. It would have been perfect. What was the planned ending? Earl is having trouble finishing up an item on his list and he comes across this guy who's been trying to find him because Earl was on this guy's list. Earl asks why he's doing that, and the guy says he got the idea from somebody else and that person from somebody else. Earl realizes his list started a chain reaction of people trying to right their wrongs and ultimately has brought more good than harm to the world, and he decides to be done with it. Also, a black celebrity that was in town was meant to be Earl Jr.'s father, who had intercourse with Joy. Somebody like Lil Wayne or Dave Chappelle, those are the names I saw mentioned when reading on it. Agreed. If you've never watched it, because I hadn't until recently, Raising Hope is by the same director, and the whole show is really funny and has a very similar vibe to My Name is Earl. Plus, there's a number of choice cameos that you'll really enjoy. Story 6, Dead Like Me. And Pushing Daisies, Brian Fuller is amazing. Mandy Patinkin was great in that. Yes, and Ellen Muth retired from acting. She participated in some shorts after that and 2 episodes of Hannibal, and that's it. What the F?
I am so happy that there is someone in this thread that brought up Dead Like Me, because I've been furious about this show getting canceled for so long. First off, Ellen Muth she was like a huge crush for me at the time. Like, we're just about the same age, and her portrayal of George is amazing. Mandy Patinkin in the show, incredible. The whole concept of the show, goddamn credible. If you don't know, basically the people of the show are Grim Reapers. They're there to help usher people on to the afterlife and stuff. It's so good. Go watch it. It's not like you get 2 seasons and then you get just left high and dry until you see the movie that supposedly tries to wrap things up, and it doesn't do a great job, but whatever. Just watch it. It's so good.
Story 7, Freaks and Geeks. Freaks and Geeks is possibly my favorite show, but I often wonder if it had continued, it would have lost its power of being such a perfect season. It would have been nice to find out for ourselves. Dude, definitely Freaks and Geeks. Right in the damn feels. The network really effed themselves on canceling Freaks and Geeks. They couldn't handle episodes that didn't have happy endings, and that was their loss. Story 8, Firefly. Take my love, take my land, take me where I cannot stand. I don't care, I'm still free. You can't take this sky from me. Take me out to the black, tell 'em I ain't coming back. Burn the land and boil the sea. You can't take this sky from me. I can't keep singing it. There's no place I can be since I found serenity. You can't take the sky from me. Yes, yes, this is a fertile land, and we will thrive. We will rule over all this land, and we will call it this land.
Folks, look, I loved Firefly at the time too. I would love Firefly to come back. Just however you want to do it, bring it back. But can we all just agree that we don't need Joss Whedon involved? People can write better dialogue than him. I'm so tired of his quip. We can get someone fresh who can bring new life to it, right? That's going to get me some hate.
Story 9, Dark Matter, ended on one hell of a cliffhanger too. I can see that it wasn't the best of shows, but gosh darn it if I didn't enjoy the crap out of it. It filled a Firefly-shaped hole for me. Story 10, Santa Clarita Diet. I miss you, buddy. Timothy Olyphant should do more comedic roles. He was hysterical in that show. God F, what is wrong with you? I say this so often. And it ended in a cliffhanger. I was so mad when I heard about the cancellation. Effing Netflix and their policy, probably, of not taking shows past season 3 unless it's Stranger Things or another dumb reality show. The Netflix 3-season curse. Enough time to be extremely successful while paying their actors crumbs before contract negotiations for a big raise or new demands. I finally got to watch this show less than a week before season 3 dropped. I binged it, loved every moment of it. Finished the 2nd season a day or 2 before the 3rd was released. Binged that too. And when I heard it was canceled, I was so incredibly peeved because how dare they let it end that way? Still holding on hope they bring it back someday. I loved that show. Story 11. Archive 81. Glow. I am not okay with this. Mindhunter. Edit. These shows are all so good that you should still watch them. Not me realizing that I'm not okay with this was canceled until this thread. It doesn't sound like you are okay with this. If you haven't listened to the podcast Archive 81 is adapted from yet, you should. It has 3 seasons and 2 miniseries and may get more seasons someday. And from what I've heard from people that watch the show and listen to the podcast is better. But I've only listened to the podcast, so I can't say for sure. Decided not to watch the show as I didn't want to be disappointed, particularly due to what I've heard about their writing of melody. Also, the TV show adapts my least favorite part of the podcast. Season 3 is my favorite part. Story 12, The Tick, all 3 times. Each was great in its own way. I really enjoyed the Amazon Tick series. Serafinowicz was closer to the animated series depiction, but Patrick Warburton putting in a dash of Adam West was inspired. The cartoon Christmas episode with a bunch of Santas coming along while Tick shouts out, "It's a Yuletide!" gets me every time.
There is literally no bad version of the Tick. The comics are delightful. The original cartoon is just amazing. His battle cry is "Spoon!" And a guy with a chair for a head starts to write his name on the moon. Patrick Warburton, like people said, delightful. And the Amazon show was incredible. And the Tick keeps getting canceled, and it drives me up a wall.
Story 13. A bunch of stuff on Netflix. The OA is a good example. It was weird, but kept me coming back. OA was so unique, but so good. And then it's odd trying to explain it to people when recommending it. You kind of just have to tell them to watch it. Actual quote of mine. You should watch it because they eventually can bring some people back from the dead with the power of interpretive dance. Also, it stars Jason Isaacs. If you like Brit Marling, I highly recommend The East. Sound of My Voice has similar vibes to the OA too, I think. Story 14. Better Off Ted. That show was so good. I think it would have done better if it had come out more recently. Veronica's meeting with Chet about the Jabberwocky project is just comedy gold. Racist building automation, hard-headed management, and diversity initiatives combine, creating a snowball effect that requires hiring everyone on Earth to run the company with said automation. And so if the company keeps hiring white people to follow black people to follow white people to follow black people, by Thursday, June 27th, 2013, every person on Earth will be working for us, and we don't have the parking for that. Better Off Ted might be the world's most underrated TV show. Story 15. Altered Carbon, The Expanse. Definitely The Expanse. The dark entities and Laconia plot lines really need to be resolved, which they did in the books. Effin' casts Anvar. Leviathan Falls is a real mind F when they start explaining the ring buildings. It's one of the best books I've ever read. Why did Altered Carbon get canned? It was well written, well received, and made money. Did they think it wasn't going to be a franchise or something? The first season was great, but the second one sucked balls, not gonna lie. I think they probably spent way too much money on Anthony Mackie in the hopes of drawing a wider audience, and the rest of the show suffered for it. Also, I could just never buy Mackie as Kovacs. Maybe he does have some hidden acting chops, but he always just seemed like a generic action actor with very little depth to me. Yeah, Kovacs really changed personalities between season 1 and 2. I prefer 1 by a mile. Yeah, they should have just given him his Asian body back. The Asian guy knew the character better. The effing better give us the last arc of The Expanse in a movie or something. There's a time jump, so they can take a few years to get it done.
Okay, I got crap from this from some friends, but I'm just gonna let it out here on the internet. I hate Altered Carbon so much. I tried so hard to get into that show. It's so up my alley in so many ways, but I just could not stand the main character or the actor portraying him, whatever. The performance just, I know characters don't have to be likable, but they do have to be interesting, and I have to want to follow their story, and I tried so hard. I had a number of friends who were like, no, you gotta stick with it. I did stick with it, and I hated every minute.
Story 16. I'm still mad about Agent Carter. I know period pieces tend to be more expensive, but come on, only 2 seasons? A bad butt female agent doing cool spy stuff while navigating the post-war "the men are back, Rosie, turn in your rivets" backlash against working women, and 2 equally fascinating villains as foils, a terrifying and hilarious Soviet agent and a secretly brilliant scientist/movie star with a mobbed-up ex-boyfriend, like she's half Hedy Lamarr and half Lana Turner. If they had embraced their justified rage and become supervillains. This show deserved more time. Edit. Forgot to mention there's a lot of good stuff with Howard Stark and his butler, the original human Jarvis. Chad Michael Murray is the main character and does great work. Peggy's love interests are a black scientist and a fellow agent who was disabled in the war. Another agent actually tells him, "I get it, but no woman is exchanging a red, white, and blue shield for a metal crutch." He deals with a lot of ableism from other guys despite being in amazing shape. He's played by Enver Jokaj. And you know, injured in the war they all fought in. I'll stop. Anyway, go watch it. It's still on Disney+. You are not the only one still mad. Loved that show. Story 17, Pushing Daisies. This is my choice. Such a good show. I'm glad they were able to tie most loose ends up, but it did end on a cliffhanger. I loved that show. I watched Wonder Falls first and thought, I can't watch Pushing Daisies if it's only one season. I'll have the same heartbreak. Oh good, it's at least 2 seasons. Narrator. But not another season after that. Story 18. Netflix is absolutely terrible for starting a show, giving us 1 season, and then abandoning it. 1899, The Imperfects, Blockbuster, Inside Job, Uncoupled, The Bastard Son and the Devil Himself, Warrior Nun, though technically this was 2 seasons, it wasn't enough. Honestly, F Netflix for never following through on anything except raising prices and charging for password sharing. They followed through on that. Yeah, and then they shove all those already canceled shows in my face. I start to watch them and get mad when I find out they're already canceled later. I wish I could filter by not canceled.
It almost makes you wish that Netflix would, instead of just throwing so much money at so many projects that are just falling apart and everything, then instead they might throw less money at better projects and stop raising their price and crap like that. They've done so many, and the thing is, they cancel so many good shows, and they've kept on some terrible shows. Paradise PD, I'm looking at you. You're one of the worst things, and you're still around. And I hate you for it because better shows have been canceled, but you just keep hanging on, don't you? Oh my God. Also, I am so mad about that Cowboy Bebop live action. Cowboy Bebop is one of my all-time favorite shows, no other qualifiers needed, and the live-action remake I'm probably unfairly judging it, but I could not get into it. Oh man, I gotta stop complaining about Netflix. And ugh.
Story 19, Firefly, one of the absolute best shows I've ever seen. I'm happy there was the movie, but it was such a strong show I wish there had been more episodes. It wouldn't be the same, but I'd still watch the crap out of a reboot. Story 20, Reaper, Ray Wise as the devil. We were effing robbed. Even though I heard it a million times before, every time I hear Radar Love, I think of that one episode. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.